Welcome to a new video. Let's take a look at some new malicious compliance stories. The first story is called, Have It Your Way. I am currently in the second year of university. I study in my home country, but I am studying in English as I spent most of my life in the United Kingdom. Because of that, the professors all teach in English, though some of them don't speak it that well. Additionally, I am a very slow writer but a very fast typer. It was our second lesson and the professor demanded that we write down all the slides, word for word, since she would want the pages back later as our homework for proof that we had done some sort of studying. I was sitting there, just taking pictures of the slides since I know that I write slow and didn't want to be the guy who says wait, I'm not done yet to make the whole class wait. About 3 slides in, the professor comes up to me and starts berating me. Why aren't you writing? You need to submit these if you want to pass this unit. I'm taking pictures. I'll write them up when I get home. Sure you will. You better start writing now before I kick you out. I write really slow. I don't want to slow down the class. No, you just want to get out of doing any work. One more word and you can just take your things and leave. Fine then. After that, I started writing. The PowerPoint was about 60 full slides and our usual lesson time is 2 hours. Every time she switched the slide, I was only about halfway through it, so I politely asked, would you go back so I can finish writing? She moaned the first few times and eventually got so annoyed that she actually came to check my writing, and indeed saw that I was only about halfway through. After she came to check, she kept an eye on me to see if I'm writing slowly on purpose, or if I'm indeed slow, and saw I was giving it my all. Once the lesson was done and everyone walked out, she came to me and said, you can take pictures. But I better see them written up at the end of the semester or I will fail you. I just said no problems and ran to catch up with my classmates. The next story is called, She Insists. I live near Chicago but my parents are near Knoxville. One summer, my wife wasn't able to take time off, but I was. So I decided that my son and I would drive down to my parents, but stop on the way and visit a roller coaster park. The year before, we'd made a visit to another big park and my son had refused to try any roller coasters. Early in the summer of this story, we'd visited a small theme park and convinced him to try the kids' roller coaster. He loved it and went through again and again. Over the course of the day, we worked our way up, until he'd tried and enjoyed them all. We left early and drove to Cincinnati with an expensive reservation in their hotel, but it's just once that you get to introduce your son to roller coasters at a major theme park. The next morning, we were through the gates and waiting, when they opened the park. We started with a smaller roller coaster and worked our way up to scarier coasters. The plan was to drive straight through to Knoxville and my parents after this. But I hadn't planned for how I, with over 40, could deal with a long day in the August heat. Not far into Kentucky, it became clear that I should not be driving, let alone should not be driving for hours. Even though I couldn't afford it, I decided I'd have to stop and sleep. I pulled off and hit the first motel. No rooms were available, no problem. There were 2 other motels. Again, no rooms in the next one and at the third one. I learned that the local football team did summer training here and their first exhibition game was tomorrow. The next exit had 2 motels but still no rooms. At the following one, I was really worried about my safety on the road and contemplating sleeping in the car. But with my height, sleeping in my old Pontiac was not an exciting thought. The first 2 options were also booked. At the third, there was a line of 2 people in front of me. It's close to 11 and I'm past exhausted. The first guy in line asks for a room and is told there are none. He begs and pleads, but the clerk is implacable. I should have left then. I'd love to say some sixth sense told me to stay, but the truth is that my degraded mental capacity didn't let me realize that. After he left, the woman in front of me stepped up and she had a reservation. It was apparently past the guaranteed time, but they'd held something for her. She had a suite reserved, but all they had left was a room with 2 queen beds. She went ballistic. The stream of profanity was truly awesome to behold. She went off for some time. The clerk was praisingly professional and did not respond as I would have. He explained that she was actually checking in well past the guaranteed check-in time, but that they had held a room for her. There was lots of back and forth, with the woman treating him with utter privileged contempt and abuse and he responding with absolute professionalism. It ended with her basically saying, screw you. I want nothing to do with an establishment that would treat me this way. I'll take my business elsewhere. To his credit, he tried to explain the football situation meant there may be no other options, that he couldn't hold her reservation if she left, and that she should take what she can get. She stormed out with more profanities. Once she was out the door, I stepped up, smiled, and asked if there were any rooms available. That guy was a professional. I could barely detect the glee as he tapped on his keyboard and said, "As a matter of fact, I just have one room open. Would you like it?" I slept well that night. The third story is called, Wear Gloves. Company policy states you have to wear gloves at all times on the shop floor, no matter what you are doing. As a maintenance engineer, and having served an apprenticeship, we were trained to never wear gloves when operating any rotating machinery, for the chance of catching said gloves in the rotating device. Now, in my company, maintenance engineers are at the top of the hourly paid food chain, and most managers know that if you are in maintenance, you tend to know what you are doing. I'm running a cable and conduit for an install and have to mount a small panel to a wall as well in a production area. For this, I need to use a drill. No big deal, I just removed my gloves to use the drill. The manager of said production area sees me working without gloves on and comes flying right over. "Get a pair of gloves on. You know the policy." I'm quite aware of the policy. But I was trained to never wear gloves while using a rotating device. I don't care. "Get a pair of gloves on." "Okay, no problem." I put on my gloves and sit down right beside where I'm working. "What are you doing?" "You told me to put my gloves on." "I've done that." "Well, why aren't you finishing your job?" "I can't use the drill with gloves on." The manager flips out, calls my maintenance manager, who always has his men's back because he used to be a maintenance engineer, who promptly comes to where I'm working. And he asks me what the problem is. I tell him, the manager demands that I wear gloves to finish this job. I just have to mount this panel, which involves me drilling a few holes. Say no more. He pulls the production manager in an office and screams at him so loud that I could hear everything. He explained that all of his men are fully trained engineers, and no matter what the company policy is, they do not wear gloves when they are operating a rotating device. After that, he storms out of the office and tells me to carry on, regardless of this idiot, and not to worry about it. So I finish my work, with no gloves. The next story is called, You Want Us to Send You Our Unused Computers? I work for a company that is owned by a company in China. The folks from China make interesting decisions about business and technology all the time. They have huge fundings in China, but absolutely nothing trickles down to us, the subsidiary in the United States. The China-based parent company has decided to open a couple of offices on the West Coast, in separate locations. Our president told the CEO in China, "Since we've laid so many people off, we've got extra computers laying around the office, we can equip your West Coast offices with our computers. Since we have laid off employees in our operations here in the United States, I have redeployed any newer or better performing technology to the remaining employees, to replace 5-year-old failing hardware and such. If it is newer, it's not just sitting on the shelf." So the first employee gets hired for the sales office on the West Coast, and I'm told to send him a computer. I dutifully drop a computer, dock and power supplies into a box and ship them off. 5 days later, I get an angry phone call from the West Coast. "This is not a director-level laptop. You didn't ask for a director-level laptop. You asked for a laptop. A free one from our remaining systems. Surely you have a better laptop there. Not one that isn't in use, really. But I have a laptop from a recently laid-off engineer that is available to be repurposed. It's pretty good, I think. Does that sound okay?" "Yes. Send that." I set the laptop up for the user and ship it to the West Coast. 4 days later, I get an angry phone call. "This laptop is huge. The power brick is the size of 2 paperback books. This guy travels, you know?" "No, I didn't know that. You said nothing about travel. You said a director-level laptop, and you really liked the specs of the machine I was going to send. He needs a smaller machine." "I don't really have a smaller machine that is director-level." "Why not?" "Because we have vice presidents here running over 5-year-old laptops. Do you not understand that the technology that we have here is old and outdated?" Then, they hire the first employee for the development office on the West Coast. I get the request to send him a laptop. Okay, I'm on it. It was a different individual than the sales office. Then this email follows up. He really would prefer a MacBook. No need for the touch bar, he likes the previous generation. We don't have any MacBooks here at all. What do you have? A Lenovo. Send that. I can't wait for the explosion in 4 days. This thing is gigantic. The last story is called My Turn to Pick Up Lunch. This happened last month, and the conclusion was this Monday. I work as a consultant, and as anyone can tell you, consultants charge you a ton of money to make up for the fact that we have a lot of non-billable time and overhead. I was doing a 2-hour safety startup for some minor excavation around some possible hazardous materials, pretty much a routine I can do while half asleep, and so can everyone there because they've all heard it 100 times. But the law is the law, and we're doing it again. It's pretty much my only job for that day, so I'm planning some nice sitting in the sun doing administrative work to fill my afternoon. After the startup talk, I'm sitting with the site safety official, checking their paperwork, when the foreman walks in. "New girl, it's your turn to pick up lunch. Here's the list." "Say what?" "We get a big lunch every Wednesday, and since you're new, it's your turn to pick it up." "Sorry, but I'm the consultant." "I don't care. Just give me the bill and I'll reimburse you. If you want any, you have to buy it yourself." I think to myself, I'm 30 and not a girl. And I don't think he realizes what I cost per hour. I say out loud, "Sure, but can you sign off first?" Yes. Just do it." He signs the work order for time and expenses, so I go out, smiling, as I drive to the local deli about 50 kilometers away. I wait patiently, grinning, as they make about 40 subs to order. Meanwhile, I've got all the time in the world to work on some bills and other administrative work, in the sun, with a coffee. When the order's done, I smile wide enough to fill up the car and drive back. Lunch is here. The foreman says, "See, that wasn't so bad, right?" No, it turns out I actually remembered how to drive. "So here's your sub, and here's your copy from the bill for the safety startup talk and the bill for the subs. And here's your copy for the bill for my unplanned overtime and my travel expenses. I already send your office all of that and your work order, so don't worry about any cash." That was last month. They actually paid the full bill without issue on Monday. It was the best lunch I had in a long time. Thanks for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please consider subscribing to the channel for more content. Let me know what you think about the stories in the comment section below. Have a great day. Bye bye.